This is a stitch-along video tutorial that will explain how to create this hoop, and it will even show you how you can back the hoop so that you don't see the excess fabric on the sides. Your embroidery kit will come with a large needle. It has a large eye so that it can easily be threaded. It will have your hoop with your pattern and 5 different colored threads. So I'm going to start by taking my green thread, and I'm going to be working on the stems. So you'll want to take some thread off, and you're going to unwrap it around the plastic until you have a good amount of thread that you're happy with. You want enough so that you don't have to rethread your needle too often, but not too much. So make sure it's a good amount that you feel comfortable pulling and using your needle with. So I'm going to take about this much thread, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it. And I can put that aside. So the first thing I want to do is tie a knot at the end of my thread. To do this, I'm going to make a loop, and then I want to tuck the tail of the thread through the loop and pull it tight. This creates a knot. So I have a knot on one end of my thread. On the other end of my thread, I'm going to be threading my needle. So to thread my needle, I like to squish together these ends of the thread and then put it through the eye of the needle. It should be pretty simple since the needle is so large. So once I've got my needle threaded, I'm ready to begin embroidering. So to do this, I'm going to choose a place to begin and pull the needle up through the bottom of the fabric. I'm starting a little bit above the bottom of the stem. I'm going to pull the needle all the way through, and the knot on the back will stop it. Then I'm going to insert the needle back down, this time all the way to the bottom of the stem. Now I'm going to go forward a little bit, leaving a space, pull the needle up all the way through, and then insert the needle back down so that those stitches are touching. And now I've created my second stitch. I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to bring the needle up a little bit ahead from where I was just stitching. Have a little space. I'm going to pull the needle all the way through, then insert the needle back down so that it's touching that other stitch that I just made. I'm going to do this until I've completed the entire stem. We're going to be doing this same stitch for all of the stems and actually for the entire embroidery. The stitch that we're doing is called a back stitch. It's one of the simplest stitches you can do in embroidery. So again, you just bring the needle up a little bit ahead of your previous stitch, and then you bring it back down, touching that previous stitch. So it works for stems, it works for the leaves, it will work for the petals, it will work for this entire embroidery hoop. We'll be able to just follow these same steps. So I'm going to keep following these same steps, and I'm going to finish all of the stems with the green thread. I want to show you how I'm going to do this stem. I'm going to follow the same steps. I'm going to be just going over the lines. But on this one, I've got little kind of spikes coming off of the stem. So I'm just going to be basically tracing over the lines with the thread using the same stitch. So I'm basically just inserting the needle at the end of each mark and covering it with the thread. Kind of like I'm coloring over the stems with my thread. So I'm just going to keep following these same steps until I've completed this entire stem. And I'll do the same thing for the other stem that looks similar to this one. And make sure you don't forget about this part of the stem up here on the lavender. I'm going to use 2 stitches to cover this part of the stem. So once I'm done with this stem, I'll need to tie off my thread on the back so that my green thread doesn't come out or come undone. So to do this, I'm going to flip my hoop over, and I'm going to take my needle. I'm going to go underneath one of my previous stitches. So I'm going to go under this stitch. I'm not going to pull all the way through though. I'm going to leave this loop, and I'm going to put the needle through the loop and then pull it tight. You need to do this 2 times. So I'm going to take my needle under the same stitch, making sure I have a loop that forms. I'm going to put my needle through the loop and then pull it tight, and that will make a knot. Then I can trim this extra thread off. And I am done with the green thread because I finished all my stems. I'm now going to start working on the flowers. So I can take the green thread out of my needle and I'm going to get my next color. I'm going to do pink. So again, I'm going to unwrap some thread off of the plastic thing. And I'm going to get, I won't need too much, but I'm going to get enough so that I don't have to rethread my needle during this. So this looks like a good amount of thread to me. I'm going to go ahead and trim the pink thread. Remember, on one end, you're going to thread the needle by just taking it through the eye of the needle. On the other end, I'm going to tie a knot. So remember to make a loop with the thread, and then you're going to tuck the tail of the thread through the loop and pull it tight. And that makes a knot. So remember to start underneath your hoop, so the knot is hidden underneath, and you can pick anywhere to start. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to start stitching back. Then I'm going to move a little bit ahead on that petal, and then I'm going to stitch back so that these stitches are touching, and I'm going to keep doing this until I've filled in the entire flower. The middle of this flower is purple, so I'll have to do that at the end when I'm using my purple thread. But I'm going to do all of the pink right now, and then I will move on to the next flower. When you're done with the thread, remember you need to tie it off from the back. So you're going to go underneath one of your stitches, pull it through, but not all the way. Make sure you leave a loop, and then you're going to insert the needle through the loop and pull it tight. Do this 2 times. Go under the same stitch, let a loop form, and then put the needle through the loop and pull it tight. Now you've got a knot. You'll follow the same step to tie it off on the back with each colored flower. And I'm going to go ahead and follow these same steps like I did for the pink flower with this yellow flower and the purple flower. Now I'm ready to do this brown colored flower. So I'm going to get my brown thread. I'm going to take as much as I think I'll need. You probably won't need all of it, but you can grab as much as you want. And then cut it off, and you're going to tie a knot at one end. So remember to make a loop and then pull the tail through the loop. And then you're going to thread your needle on the other end. And then I'll show you how to stitch this flower. This flower is very simple, but it is a little bit different than the pink and yellow and purple flowers, so I just wanted to show you. So you're going to start at one end of one of these spikes, you could call them. You're going to bring the needle up, and then you're going to just take it to the center of the flower and pull it through. Then you're going to do it again. You're going to go to the end of one of these little spikes, pull it through, and then go right to the middle. So every time you stitch, it's coming right to the middle, and you're just doing one big long stitch to cover the entire line, taking it to the middle of the flower. So you'll just go work your way around this entire flower. Again, you're just using one long stitch to cover the whole line, and it always meets up in the middle. So just keep going around the flower until you've made it back to the beginning where you started. So I'm just finishing up this last part, and then we'll need to tie the thread off on the back of our hoop so that the brown thread doesn't come undone. So remember, you'll just go underneath one of your stitches, let a loop form, you'll insert the needle through the loop and pull it tight. Do it 2 times, and then you'll have a knot. You can go ahead and trim the tail off of that, and then I'm going to show you how to back your embroidery hoop. So to do the back of the embroidery hoop, meaning to pull all that fabric back so you can't see it, you'll need some extra thread. So I've got a lot of different extra thread. I'm going to use some extra brown thread since I've got plenty of that. So I'll just want to tie a knot on one end and pull it tight. Okay, and then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start by inserting the needle up from underneath, and I'm going to pull it all the way through. I'm going to go under and over, all the way around my hoop, following this pattern. This is called a running stitch. I'm just going up through it and then back down, up through and then back down. And I'm going to stitch like this until I've gone all the way around. And now I'm at my very last stitch, so I'm just going to pull the needle up, and now I've got two tails. I don't need my needle anymore, but I've got this long tail and a short tail. I'm going to pull both of them so that it cinches all this fabric together, pulls it all together. Then I'm just going to tie a knot like I'm tying my shoe. I'm going to cross over the threads, pull it tight. I'm going to do it one more time, just like tying my shoe. This has all of the fabric now is pulled together, and it's being secured by this knot. So I can go ahead and trim off this extra thread. And now I'm done. Now I've got all the fabric pulled together on the back, so you can't see any of it from the front side. Thank you so much for stitching along with me. You can grab your next kitty kit on my Etsy shop called Thread Unraveled.